白岩学園3年 B 組の皆さん、こんにちは。
Good morning, everybody. Yes, Bear Sanjetorix. I edited the video. Basically, I got the raw audio from one of Esprit's albums. I think it's Virtua Fighter. Yeah, Virtua Fighter.zip, which is a fantastic album. Get the extended version of that album. It's worth it. Anyway, I just took the track, which is, excuse me, my bad, which is entitled Esprit. I threw it in the editing bay, and I was doing a video project at the time. I decided that I was going to re-edit Battle Royale, but featuring Tears for Fears and George Clanton. So just imagine taking songs from The Big Chair and then making Battle Royale into a music video. I don't know, like, you get weird hobbies. As you get older, you get really weird hobbies. Anyway, I decided that I wanted to have an intro track before the album play, and so I just threw together that. All I did was I just added the audio from Battle Royale onto that track, and weirdly, I think it works. Like I think it works really well. Something about the tone, I can't explain it. The sarcastic nature of the video that's taken from, because within the movie Battle Royale, there's the fake educational video that's all about what Battle Royale is, and the sarcastic tone of that fake video somehow fits perfectly to the music. I thought it was funny, so there you go. Anyway, alright, no, I haven't uploaded it. Maybe I will, I don't know, I'm not sure. But yeah, I do think it works. Something about it is just, it's just right. Anyhow, so today, yeah, that's right, Eternalism has a happy face helicopter, little guy, and then some other stuff. There's a really awesome fucking helicopter scene in Battle Royale that I just love. I edited a video to that, so I might play that. I mean, I haven't played it in like half a year to a year, so I might play it again. But anyway, alright, today I was chit-chatting with, excuse me, sorry about that. I was chit-chatting with Charles, of Irreplaceable Charles fame, and I was made aware of an article featuring freaking Charles. I didn't know about it at all. I'm really excited about this. I'm gonna read it. This is a cold read. I've not read this article, but apparently there's salt. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put together. So we're gonna remove you, GTFO. I'm going to play the edit that I made featuring the let's see here, featuring the helicopter sequence, because I love that helicopter sequence. It's so cool. I have to find it. Let's see here. I think, let's see here. Yeah, that's way too tiny. It's not going to work out at all. So I'm trying to get all this lined up now, so that I just generally have it. Okay, cool. I know what's going on now. We're fine. I'll be playing that track a little bit later on, not right now, obviously. Anyway, classy activism. Hey buddies, cheers, bro. So coming back to the Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania 2020. It's gonna happen, bro. Virginia. So coming back to the article, yeah, it's pretty exciting, and I'm going to link to it in the chat so that if anyone wants to read along, they may. It's a pretty long article, so I'm not sure. Okay, actually no, rescinded. It's not that long at all. In fact, I think I can do it all in one go. I think. And indeed, not only does the article refer to Charles, it also refers to another YouTuber that at least one or two of us may have heard about, who goes by the moniker of Patrick Bateman. So we're going to read about this. Alright, the link is in the chat for anyone that wants to read along. Anyone that doesn't, that's fine too. It's not a big deal. So yeah, we're going to read, and then once we're done reading, we are going to play some music. So now we got a plan. Here we go, guys. This article is entitled Georgia Southern University Student Discusses the quote Jewish question, end quote, on a Neon Yahtzee podcast. This was written on January 3rd, 2020. Rather, it was uploaded January 3rd. Who knows? It could have been written sometime during the Christmas area. Difficult to know. This is by Eyes on the Right. I don't know who that is, but that's fine. And the tags are anti-Semitism, Charles Robertson. He gets his own tag now. Identity Yevropa, Patrick Bateman, Racism, and Xenophobia. So these are very intense tags that we are talking about. And also, the image at the top features his visage. So apparently he's such a guy that they have to show his face. All right, here we go. During the 27th episode of the White Supremacist podcast, quote, Surviving Vimerica, end quote, Georgia Southern University student Chuck Robertson made a guest appearance where he denigrated black people as, quote, superstitious, end quote, and talked about the, quote, JQ, end quote, or, quote, Jewish question, end quote. Very intense. That's a very intense leading paragraph. Let's continue. The podcast was uploaded to a BitChute channel called Waffenhaus and Surviving Vimerica, end quote, a nod to the Waffen-SS, a NatSoc military branch. Robertson had made a splash in white supremacist circles after he posted a video of a class presentation he gave on the, quote, Great Replacement, end quote, a white nationalist conspiracy. I have to stop here. Conspiracy theory. It's not a conspiracy of white nationalists. This is a conspiracy theory. This is because it's not the white nationalists that are engaging in Great Replacement. It's the white nationalists that are theorizing that there is a conspiracy to replace them. So that always bothers me. That always bothers me when people say that they're, talking about, like, the white nationalist conspiracy about the Great Replacement. It's like, God damn it, learn how to use English. Okay, but let's continue. A white nationalist conspiracy theory, end bracket, which posits that white Europeans and Americans are being replaced by immigrants of color. This is demonstrably happening. All you have to do is just look at demographic charts beginning in 1965, continuing. The, quote, Great Replacement, end quote, theory has fueled deadly white supremacist terrorist attacks, including one in Christchurch, New Zealand, Poway, California, and El Paso, Texas. I mean, fine, but, like, there are machete attacks literally daily in London, so how about go fuck yourself? Continuing, during the presentation, which was replete with racist alt-right memes, Robertson promoted the white supremacist hate group American Identity Movement, or AMIM, formerly known as Identity Yevropa. Identity Yevropa was forced to rebrand after the contents of its main Discord server were released to the public. It says was released, but like that's an editing. Like whoever edited this needs to be fired. Continuing, following the presentation, which he promoted on Twitter. My bad. Okay, so that's me jumping the gun on that. My apologies. This is a cold read. Following the presentation, which he promoted on Twitter using the hashtag GroiperWars, Robertson was invited on The Public Space, a YouTube show hosted by white nationalist Jean-Francois J.F. Garapi, I think. I've never known how to pronounce his last name. I'm not going to worry about it, though. Cheers to JF, whatever he's doing, good on you, buddy. Okay. As detailed by Atlanta anti-fascists, Robertson said he wasn't afraid of expulsion for his racist activism both in and outside of the classroom. On Surviving Vimerica, pseudonymous host Patrick Bateman asked Robertson whether, quote, the black drug dealer, end quote, or the, quote, white bugman, end quote, is more free and American. Parenthetical, this is a nice one, parenthetical. A, quote, bugman, end quote, is generally defined as an urban-dwelling consumerist in alt-right circles, and parenthetical. That's not far off. They're actually really close. It's funny watching people try to understand things. Robertson answered that neither of them, quote, get much, end quote, in the, quote, long run, end quote. I don't know why. Okay, whatever, anyway. Bateman disagreed and said that the, quote, black drug dealer, end quote, is actually more free than the, quote, white bugman, end quote. However, because the, quote, bugman in the long run works and slaves for a society that hates him, end quote, even though the, quote, bugman, end quote, makes the wheels turn in Western society. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't know what's with all the quoting, or, the quotes and everything. And it's weird. Alright, continuing. In contrast, Bateman said that the, quote, black drug dealer lives an exciting life, end quote, and, quote, gets any woman he wants, end quote. I would disagree with that, because I know some of them. Anyway, I mean, I've run into them. I know what they look like. I've seen how they live. This is Los Angeles. This is actually this is a part of the background terrain. It's just what you see here. Bateman claimed that society, quote, rewards criminal blacks with financial gain, an exciting life, all the sex they can handle, and all the, should I say, the pleasantries of money, end quote. Only the high-ups, actually. Again, I happen to see some of this from the background, and your average drug dealer has a shit life. It's awful. They're usually on welfare benefits, and they make absolute fuck nothing money. It's terrible. Moving on. Minutes later, the pair shift to discussing immigration. So, to come back, I agree with Bateman that drug dealers get a free pass. I completely agree with that. Because they have carte blanche. They can basically do whatever, and they just get a slap on the wrist, and it's not really that big of a deal, but they don't make a lot of money. And unless you're doing, either high volume or, a clientele that's, something, you're generally making about what you would make, at McDonald's. It's not really a lot at all. Anyway, minutes later, the pair shift to discussing immigration. Robertson declared that repealing the Hart-Celler Immigration Act of 1965, which abolished the racial quota system for immigration, should be a priority. I actually agree with that. He said doing so would, quote, drop us from 1 million immigrants a year to 250,000, end quote. I agree with Charles that should be a priority. The problem is that the government no longer represents us, so that's flatly impossible. Even if, for example, several people, let's say a couple of senators, wanted to push that, the rest of the federal government is going to be let's go ahead and stop this cash cow. No, they're not going to. It's going to continue. There's no way out of it. We're on a train. This train is going to run aground. There's nothing that can be done about it. We have to brace for it. We have to prepare for what's going to happen after the train jumps the tracks. Continuing, Robertson said he believed he could win over anti-immigrant African Americans in his cause as well. He advised that white people tell black people, for example, that in Asian and Jewish neighborhoods the stores are Asian and Jewish owned and operated respectively. However, if you quote, go into the black neighborhood and you go into a store, some Pakistani guy owns it and some Indian guy works there, end quote. Bateman thought this strategy to pit these groups against one another was futile because black political movements are failures. Bateman said this is because African Americans have no agency and black political movements must be propped up by whites and Jews to be effective. Quote, even the black middle class is kind of propped up by government contractors. They're unable to make anything themselves, end quote, Bateman said. He added that, quote, most of the dysfunction you see within their communities include the out-of-wedlock births. It's just by default genetics, end quote, and chalked it up to the, quote, habits and traits they picked up and acquired from natural evolutionary processes in Africa, end quote. Bateman also said most black nationalists believe that, quote, the way to get back at Whitey is pretty much to take his woman and to produce mongrels, end quote, and called black people, quote, ignorant, end quote, and a, quote, very superstitious group of people, end quote. Robertson agreed with the latter remark, saying he, quote, observed a great deal of superstition, end quote, among black people. Speaking for myself, I actually have seen that. Later on, Bateman and Robertson discuss the best way to enlighten people on the, quote, Jewish question, end quote, a phrase with Natsock roots. Excuse me. That is often abbreviated as, quote, JQ, end quote. Quote, whenever you try to explain the nature of the JQ to a normie, you have to recognize the fact that they're programmed to turn off, end quote, Robertson warned. Instead, he said people must, quote, work within the confines of the programming, end quote. I agree with that, by the way. We have to meet them at their map of the world. And because if you come out of left field, they will not understand. So we have to find some way to bridge this. So the phrasing to work within the confines of the programming, that actually does work. But whatever. Anyway, continuing. To that end, Robertson suggested a word that could apply to fellow whites, but that would sound like it doesn't apply to all fellow whites, which he believes will make their anti-Semitic. Why couldn't I pronounce that just now? That's really weird. Which he believes will make their anti-Semitic propaganda more palatable. Quote, but there is one word, and that word has been so useful to me in speaking with normal people, in speaking with college professors, and even speaking with fellow whites themselves, end quote, he said. Quote, the word is very useful. That word is Loxist, end quote. He defined, quote, Loxism, end quote, as the, quote, Jewish cultural hatred of white Europeans, end quote, and believes using it as a substitute for, quote, Jew, end quote, will be more effective. Quote, when you don't talk about the Jews, but you do talk about Loxists, and you point at Tim Wise, or at Noel Ignatieff, or at Barbara Lerner Specter, and you don't say, quote, look at this Jew, end quote. You say, quote, look at this Loxist, end quote. They're willing to listen to you, end quote, Robertson asserted. And that's the end of the article. I feel like that didn't really... I mean, they wanted it to be a hit piece, but for some reason it wasn't terribly... It didn't have a good punch at the end, which is too bad. I was hoping that there would be like some kind of a nice, like you know, and Robertson was bad because meh. But instead it just sort of peters off as, oh yeah, he talked about Loxism. And it's like, well, but that's a real thing. What are you talking about? It's a weird. Alright, anyway. Let's see here. Alright, there's some stuff going on up in the chat. Hello, everybody. Heinrich Lucas Ford, hey, Sport. Oh, freaking Rich D is here. Hey, buddy, what's going down? Jonathan Pohl, hey, buddy, what's going down? Freaking Patrick is here. Hey, Patrick Siegeman, what you going, buddy? Let's see here. Somebody's communist and gay. That's fine. I'll go with it. Let's see here. Patrick Siegeman says the communist Vosh made a post about me. Oh, really? Here. Alright, let me go ahead and Patrick, I don't know if you're in the, I don't know if you are in the chat still, but I'm gonna get a hangout going right now just to see if you're about. So let's generate a hangout, and maybe I can ask you about that because that sounds very interesting. All right, I'm boomer teching while streaming. My apologies. All right, so we've got that, and yes, where are we? Son of a gun. I have to actually find it now. Here we go. Very good. All right, so if he's about... All right, anyway. So anyway, yeah, that was the article, and I don't see too much going on in chat at the moment, so I guess that's that about does it for that. Anyway, yeah, I guess I'm gonna get ready to play the track. Because there we go. So here we go. I'm gonna play. This is that track that I had talked about with the helicopter sequence. I don't like the last time I played this. I didn't get any strikes on YouTube, so I'm like 90% sure that I'll be able to play this without it like crapping on my channel. We'll see what happens. So, you know, wish me luck. Alright guys, here we go. This is, I forget the name of the track, but it's by a vaporwave artist who goes by Mike Tenay. And I just happen to like this track. It's kind of neat. And I specifically did this edit just because I really liked the helicopter sequence. So, what are you gonna do? Anyway, here we go. Let's cross our fingers. Alright, I had to cut the audio on that a little bit early. My apologies on that. Actually, I looped in some other stuff there. So, oh, Pat can't pop in. That's too bad. But yeah, I looped in some audio from one of my favorite television shows, Mr. Rogers. The thing is that within the context of the edit, like, I had a bunch of George Clanton and Tears for Fears music playing, and I kind of wanted to be as chronological as possible for the movie, that is. And, you know, the whole freaking thing is in, like, Japanese. Like, nobody speaks Japanese in Los Angeles, you know, and, like, you can't do, what do you call, subtitles for the whole thing. So I realized, because I designed it to be played in a bar. So the idea is, like, just imagine, like, a giant screen, and you're just playing a bunch of, like, weird vaporwave and 80s rock and shit, and you've got, like, a giant music video happening to it. So you've got, like, arterial blood spray going to, like, cymbal crashes and drum solos and shit, and all of the audio that would link everything together, like, if it's in Japanese, like, nobody's gonna know. So instead what I did was I looped in Mr. Rogers. So it ended up being basically Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but, like, set to Tears for Fears and Battle Royale. It sounds retarded, and it is kind of retarded, but it was fun to edit, and, you know, it was fun, but, you know, there you go. Anyway. Alright, so, yeah, as we have now, it's now approaching the top of the... no, we're not. We're actually only at 11:40. Holy cow. Look at this. 11:40. We've got, like, so much time. We've got so much time to freaking burn right now. That's fine. I'll go with it. Anyway. So... Alright, now that we've talked a little bit about Charles, I want to come back to Virginia for just a minute, because I know, like, I talk about Virginia way too much, and I actually think that is kind of a a lame thing, but I want to spend just like 2 minutes talking about Virginia just for a moment. Excuse me, sorry. I wanna try to hammer this home, and I think I'm gonna say this like multiple times this week, and maybe for a while longer, because it's absolutely worth repeating. Not for you guys in the chat, but I'm hoping that you guys in the chat somehow get this out to other people, because this is a worthwhile, the Virginia question, this is a worthwhile concept, which is, there's all this hay being made about Virginia. Oh my gosh, we got our sanctuary cities or whatever. But if the feds decide that they are going to, throw down the hammer or whatever, the real line in the sand actually is whether or not the gun shops still sell AR-15s. If gun shops continue to sell AR-15s and AK-47s, then it is a free state, and the gun owners have won. If the gun shops stop selling ARs, and if they stop selling AKs, or if they deny people the ability to buy more than one firearm in a month, that means that the tyrants have won. That's what it means. So I would say that we need to be very mindful about what it is that we're talking about when discussing Virginia. Just saying things like the police won't enforce these laws, well, those individual officers will get fired, and they will be replaced with people who will enforce those rules and laws. If it comes to actually using firearms, we are in grave danger of just winning in general. So what I mean by that is the firearms are the very last line. They're at the end of the entire process, and they suggest that you've actually lost because you don't have any other alternative. What we need is the political will to deny them the ability to meaningfully enforce any of these draconian dictates. That's the only real victory. So I would say, try to get it out there. Try to get it out there that just saying sanctuary city is not enough. It's just not enough. There needs to be real non-compliance. And that's a tall order. And I'm not going to lie, that's borderline Fed posting, if we're going to be honest. So, whatever. But it's true. Refusing to comply with draconian laws is actually the only realistic answer. It's the only way to indicate to these tyrants that you're not gonna take their shit. Because if you obey their dictates, then they win. They win by default. And we cannot, in my opinion, we cannot allow that to happen. And we should not allow that to happen. We should instead say no to whatever it is that they're demanding. So that's just my own opinion. That's just the way that I'm thinking about this. And it looks like in the chat some people are talking about Iran. Yeah, I heard that there's going to be some kind of a war. Then I heard that the war was called off. I don't know, it's tough to tell. I usually mod one of those, but there's no liberalism involved. I don't know what that's going on about. Too bad. I'm not sure what's going on. There's like a Marx we're talking about, apparently. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. It's all sorts of weirdness is going on in the chat. Sorry, guys. Talking about Ove for some reason. Fuentes was dense today about yesterday's dislikes decreasing by 300. He said why YouTube deleted 300 Vaush sock accounts. Chat said, quote, "It's us flipping votes, dummy," end quote. Oh no, it's terrible. Imagine still acting like the U.S. state apparatus still has a shred of credibility. Well, that's actually going to be, because it's already, as far as I'm concerned, the legitimacy crisis has come and gone. Like, we are in a post-American society. It's just that no one knows. Even the government doesn't really know yet, but they're going to catch on pretty freaking fast. Tom Anderson, hey buddy, what's going down? The legitimacy crisis, now that it's come and gone, I mean, unfortunately, the next big step is that people start openly defying government rules and laws, but really, and not just the progressives with their immigrants. I think it's going to expand a lot. I'd like to see Virginia take a stand. I really would. And I'd like it to be nonviolent. In a perfect world, it all happens in a nonviolent manner, but we'll see what happens. Bersingetorix says Iran just shot down a Ukrainian airliner. Armageddon resumed. Yeah, that's, I heard the same thing. I keep thinking to myself that there may be some kind of there might be, because they've been trying to meme a war with Iran for like a decade. I remember in like 2008 or so when John Cain was singing "Bomb, Bomb, 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 Iran," and it's like, you cynical bastard. I was upset at him, like, back in those days. Like, I didn't know much about not much of anything, but I found myself very upset at him for that one. And I only realized after the fact he's actually singing the song of other people. He's dancing to the tune of Zog. I didn't know that. I had no idea at the time. Yeah, it would take me, God, like a decade to finally catch on. Anyway, yeah, they're trying to they have been trying to meme a war with Iran for quite some time, and I honestly do think that they will try to force it. The thing about it, like the wrinkle, the twist in my mind, is that they don't have the moral component. They don't have the legitimacy necessary from a moral standpoint to say this is a worthy fight. I don't think it's a worthy fight, and a large portion of America also seems to think that this is an absolutely silly thing. I have heard no one other than, like, basically shills say that they agree with the concept of a war with Iran. Like, I watched some kind of a weird, like, some boomer that was trying to say, yeah, you know, like, what is it, Charlie Kirk levels of cringe. You know, America's back, baby. We're not going to take shit from anybody, even Iran or whatever. It's like, whatever, man. Like, okay, fine. And, like, that's, like, the best that they can do right now. The best they can do is, like, fake hype. And it's stupid. And no one buys it. So I'm not sure if they will actually get their little war with Iran. I hope they don't. I really hope they don't. Because the way that I see it, personal opinion, I've been trying to find that 4chan post about how a civil war is impossible, and they may actually try to initiate a third world war just to cover for the American Civil War. And I'm starting to think that might be the direction that they're going. Like, I'm not saying that's going to happen. What I'm saying is I think that's their plan. I'm starting to think that that's what they're going to try to do. So when I think about Iran, I think to myself, okay, so it's stupid. Yeah, exactly. Eternalism, nation over country every day. Yeah. So I think that their whole thing with Iran is stupid, but I understand that that is their plan. And I understand that they think that if they can somehow, misdirect the public's attention, they can somehow just sidle into positions of power and completely render the populace unable to defend itself, completely defenseless against their machinations. And I wonder if that's going to happen. I really do. I actually don't know. I genuinely don't know. Let's see here. Heinrich says, who is a part of the American people, Goose? Goose says, IDK. We'll figure that out after the American state goes away, Keck. But in the context of a conversation, I think that's a decent tack. What are we talking about? If people accuse me of hating America, like Aaron, I'm going to tell them that a nation is a people. I love the American people. I hate the American state. Oh, I see. And Heinrich is wondering which people Goose is talking about. Well, I think I know which people we're talking about. And I think that Goose and Heinrich would be on the same page, even though they're giving each other crap right now. But I guess it's all for the lulz, so it's okay. Let's see here. I care about Iran. I don't support the regime, but I care about the nation. Yeah, I basically feel the same way. Heinrich Lucas Ford says during war times they can clamp down on political dissidents more explicitly and with more ferocity. They will have more assets and jurisdiction at FBI, NSA, etc. If not for the Special Terrorism Task Force formed by Chertoff after 9/11, Matt Hale would not have been locked up. Yeah, I'm kind of getting that impression that they're going to go like hard police state. And I do agree that it will be easier if there's more of these like wars and conflicts and things going on in the media that are very spectacular. They can do all of these no-knock red flags, and they can take away everyone's rights on the back end so that people don't notice it. So yeah, I do think that's going to happen. Rather, I think that's their plan. That's what they want to do. Let's see here. Goose says, he said Trump is doing this to distract from his impeachment. Yeah, possible. Tough to say. Cringe Natsock says, this is just Trump's way of distracting the public from his impeachment. It's possible. Possible. Yeah, I don't know. Tough to say. Yeah. Gilbert, yeah, looks like Tom Anderson had enough of Gilbert Saldago. Yeah, I agree with Tom Anderson on that one, in as much as, yeah, it's silly. I'm sorry, Gilbert Saldago. Like, impeachment is stupid, number one. Number two, calling Trump a domestic terrorist is silly. So, whatever. Yes, Cringe Natsock, I'm absolutely reading all of this out of context. You are correct. But anyway, alright, so we are approaching the top of the hour, and I think, let's see here, I think I kind of want to chit chat with someone. I have a Hangout open, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the chat to, or the link to Goose, and let's see, where are we? Heinrich if you happen to be able to pop on, you're more than welcome to do so. And I'm looking for Otto. Where are we? There we are. Otto is in the chat. Bada boom bing. And there we go. Let me get my headphones on. And maybe, just maybe, someone will pop by. Tough to say. Oh, wait a second. Is anyone... Hello? How's it going? All right. Let me go ahead and transition over. Looks like your camera's on, by the way. I don't know if that's important.
Can you see my face at all?
No, I can't see your face.
Yeah, it's dark and I'm in bed.
Okay. All right, that's fine. As long as you've got your, yeah, as long as, okay, there we are. And now we are going to, where are we? There we are. How's it going, man?
That's good.
Yeah? Oh no, Heinrich can't pop by, that's too bad. Alright, well, I'll make a special case to talk with Heinrich later on. Anyway, so freaking Goose, man, how's it going? Like, what's going down?
Oh, not a lot. Been kind of following the Iran thing, although I was spending. OV's been streaming again, which I think he was trying to get away from, and now he's just back into it full force.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I had to time out Gilbert over there too. Well, I didn't time him out here, but yeah, I like Gilbert, but certain comments.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. Sometimes people get unruly and say silly things. What can you do?
What was the thing he said that ticked me off over on the other stream?
What's that?
Oh, he actually said something, and Jews are doing a fine job running the world. I'm just like, nope.
I mean, that's demonstrably not the case.
Yeah.
You know, just look at Europe and America. You know, their hatred of white people has caused them to basically destroy, you know, basically large sections of Western civilization. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I've been reading a bit on biblical translations. This is kind of not related to anything, but
No, go for it.
curious thing. So I was looking through one of the Bibles in our house. It used to be my grandpa's. I think my dad uses it pretty often. And one of my dad's notes in it led me to a verse. I think it was John 5:39, and that referenced me to Romans, basically 2 verse 17 through 24, and 24 in particular directly references a verse in Isaiah, Isaiah 52:5 specifically. And that is a really curious verse, and it got me on this whole trip where I was reading into different source texts used for biblical translations, and how everything relates. And basically, the passage in the New Testament directly references a version of Isaiah 52:5 that is in the Septuagint, which is the Greek, but is not in a lot of more modern translations because they use something called the Masoretic text, which is basically the Hebrew and Aramaic version of the Old Testament that rabbis transcribed and compiled in 900 AD or something. And they changed some stuff, and it's funny because that verse in particular in the Greek is a lot more damning towards the tribe. God basically says, because of you, my name is continuously blasphemed among the Gentiles. And that's exactly what's reflected in the New Testament, even in most translation or all translations, basically.
Really?
Yeah. Romans. If you can look it up, just read Romans. What did I say? 2:24. Yeah, 2:24. It's fascinating. So I've been looking into it, and it turns out that, if I'm not mistaken, the oldest surviving version of the Old Testament is the Greek Septuagint, not any Hebrew or Aramaic, at least not any complete text. And it's interesting because the rabbis, the Pharisaic Jews essentially, compiled the Masoretic text, and that's treated often as the authoritative text. And a lot of more modern translations will use that. But the things they've dug up, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and before that, something called the Nash Papyrus that was found in Egypt in 1898. More often than not, these fragments contradict the Masoretic text and vindicate the Septuagint. So it's really interesting because I don't know. I kind of wonder if there was some meddling going on among the rabbis in the late first millennium. I wouldn't exactly put it past them.
I've got
Yeah.
the impression that the majority, like, because I was going to play this chick. I forget her name. I forget her name, but she's a fellow white, and she studies Torah and Talmud. And she's got like a lecture series on, like, yeah, basically Old Testament theology, Old Covenant theology, and just all the ins and outs. And one of the things that she says is, yeah, there's actually huge breaks and schisms, even within fellow white stuff. And the interpretations of the Torah themselves are open, like, for real debate, like actual debate. One of the things that she says is that there was a situation that popped up where a ruling was made about, I don't remember what it was, but there was some kind of a ruling that had a basis in Torah, and it actually went in some particular way against God's will. This is the claim. And the rabbi said, when someone was objecting, Rabbi, you are subverting God's will. How dare you do such a thing? The rabbi said, no. The Torah text is outside of heaven, which means it is now in the domain of man, and man may interpret the text however he so chooses, even including overriding the author of the text.
It's crazy.
Yes.
That's why the book of Revelation specifically says there at the end that no words shall be removed from this text, no words shall be added to it, blah blah blah. But convenient for Jews, they don't have to care about the New Testament.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. But just the mere fact that the oldest surviving, even if you just go to Wikipedia and read about the Septuagint, there's an image that kind of has a tree diagram of different translations, and it has like the Latin Vulgate on there and all kinds of different stuff. And yeah, as far as surviving text, the oldest one is the Greek translation from about 270 BC. And I almost feel like that's just symbolic of, what the coming of Christ was all about. And the sort of, basically, you're not the chosen people anymore. Everyone's the chosen people. And it's so weird, though. It's weird that this is so obvious, yet the Masoretic text is treated as so authoritative. It's kind of like, well, don't you think the Word of God probably carries across languages? It's almost as if the biblical scholars and people are almost idolizing the languages themselves, like Hebrew and Aramaic.
As a Protestant, I know that the true language of God, that the proper language for the Bible is German. It's not Greek or Hebrew. Otherwise, why would the Gutenberg Bible be in German? Why would Martin Luther use German text if it wasn't to be the language of God?
Guess I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
I love it. Hey, Jonathan, how's it going, man?
It's going all right.
Yeah. Word. Oh, wait. Is there somebody else here? Who else is here? A guy named
no.
Max.
Fed.
Who's Max? Hey, buddy. What's going down?
What's up, man?
Hey, bro. Oh, is this Heinrich?
Sounds like
Yeah.
Andy.
Yeah, of course.
That's going.
How'd you figure out how to use the Hangouts?
I don't know, man.
I thought you had a technical problem.
I did.
Yeah.
I guess I overrid it. I don't know.
Well, that's what I always told James. It's going to be like the historians are going to write 100 years from now. There was this really vibrant intellectual movement, but they couldn't use modern technology to save their lives, and so were destroyed.
Oh, no. That makes me... Oh, anyway. All right. Well, it's nice to see everybody here. So, all right. Yeah, I've been very interested in like Old Testament theology recently, and like yeah, I know it's kind of a bore, and like, you know, why am I studying a religion that I don't believe in? Like I sometimes think it's a bit silly, but it is interesting to notice, like, because I kind of feel like if you're going to like if you're going to understand what's being leveled against you, you actually do have to understand it. Like if you're going to deal with what's being leveled against you, you have to understand it. You know, like if you're going to be attacked by a wild animal, it might be a good idea to understand the stalking habits of that animal, you know?
Do you specifically mean studying Old Testament theology from the perspective of like rabbis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're going to
Yeah.
do things, and if you don't understand what they're doing, like for example, we do not respond to crying and hand wringing, so they play victim, and that's like totally counter to the way that we operate. Europeans don't operate in a victim narrative. We don't operate well, I should say, in a victim narrative. We like the heroic narrative. We like to, you know, conquer our problems. We don't like to wait for somebody to solve our problems for us, generally. So, like, but
We've been hanging out at the Maimonides Persian Center, and
yeah,
speaking Farsi with Judas Chai.
that's actually next week.
Does Judas speak Farsi? Is he actually from Iran?
His parents are from Iran. His father is a Persian Gentile, and his mother is a Persian Jew. Of course, like all such mixtures, they end up being super Jews.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a little bit that I found in the Old Testament. I can't remember the verse, but it had something to do with, I think it's in the book of Esther, where the Jews are in some kind of a problem, and they cry out to God to remind him of their covenant. So they're in trouble, and then they cry out, and then they get favor from God because of that. So there seems to be like a real link, like a Torah-based link to crying out, basically, for God to save them. And, you know, I think this is why their narratives always end up with Deus Ex Machina. But like, if we don't understand that about them, if we don't understand that they really do have a basis in their holy books for playing victim, then we will never be able to understand their psychology. We'll never be able to deal with them.
Can you just really quick give me just the most dumbed down explanation of the Deus Ex Machina reference and what you mean by it? Because I haven't seen that.
Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah, or Ghost out of Machine, depending. It comes from old theater. There would be these comedies, as opposed to a tragedy is just anything really, it's like Oedipus Rex is a tragedy. I'll let you look that one up on your own. And a comedy.
I know about Oedipus.
What's that?
Said I know about Oedipus.
Okay, good, yeah. And a comedy would be like just basically anything that's not a tragedy. We think of comedy.
Comedy is funny.
Well, that's how we think of comedy, but back in the day, a comedy would have been like any random drama or whatever.
Was like
The list of
irony
things.
a big component of comedy? I'm assuming.
What's that?
I remember learning that growing up is that in the original like ancient Greek sense, comedy wasn't necessarily funny.
Yeah.
It was more of a drama, and I kind of assume that it involves irony in some capacity, maybe.
Sometimes, maybe. I'm not okay, but I want to get back to Deus Ex Machina. The thing is that there were all these comedies that were made where they had to resolve the problem, whatever it was, and a lot of lazy writers, what they would do is they would literally resolve the problem by having one of the gods come on stage and then resolve it for all of the characters.
You do that when you invite Poseidon on. You just have the sea god come on, and
That's right.
resolves your problem.
Exactly. And the way that they, in these, because this is in the days of theater, okay, the way that they would frequently have these gods.
As if there was no more theater left.
Well, there is some theater. Well, I mean, okay, anyway, so.
I bet you every, not even just large town, every mid-sized town in America has a theater. It's just, you're so used to the Hollywood pause that you're not aware that there's actual, like, live theater in
No,
the
there
Midwest.
is. No, there is. Okay, but no, coming
Even
back
up here,
to.
I've worked on a couple plays.
Okay, but coming back to the Deus Ex Machina, they would have the gods come on stage, and they would actually have like machines, like a little rig, like a harness, and they would lower the person, or they would have a boat or some kind of a craft, get them onto the stage. So the god would come on to the stage via some kind of a machine, hence Deus Ex Machina. But it was a stage prop. It was just a stage prop that was intended to resemble like a cloud or whatever. Does that make sense?
Should I watch the movie?
Right, but isn't it based on the idea that, you could, and you did have in Greek mythology, intervention by Zeus and, not even necessarily God, it could be like a Hercules wasn't a deity, but he's strong enough that he could do something, or a Titan.
Wasn't he like a demigod or something?
Yeah, he was like Zeus's son, I think, by a mortal woman, so like a half god, demigod. Yeah.
A Michelin.
Yes. Yeah.
That is humorous. Theo Michelin.
But, yes. But I think that's not just the Deus Ex Machina idea. I think is pretty universal because it's an easy way out. Like, oh no, we fucked this up beyond all recognition. We need divine intervention at this point.
That's the thing is the Old Testament is full of God rebuking them for being faithless and just screwing everything up, especially in like the later prophets like Isaiah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it had to do with if you're going to try and make a critique in that society, you have to do it from a religious point of view. So right? It's not just me saying you screwed everything up. God saying you screwed everything up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to. Okay, so, alright. I almost want to talk about Iran, but I like this topic a lot, so I don't know. I haven't. Okay, would you mind if I asked about? Because I feel like you, Goose, have spent some time on Iran. What the hell is going
Not a
on?
lot.
Okay.
I mean, Otto could probably talk a lot more about it than I could. But what were you gonna say?
No, I got nothing.
Oh.
I did notice a news story because it's on my feed. The largest U.S. oil company operating in Iraq, or U.S. oil companies only operate in the Kurdish area now. They don't operate in the Arab area to the south. Has taken all of its American workers and sent them home, and that's Chevron Exxon.
I get so annoyed when
Jeez.
people act like they're red-pilled and they say, like, oh, the Middle Eastern wars are just for oil. All I can think is, like, if we really cared about oil, we would have. Don't you think we would have found a reason to invade Venezuela years ago? Like now, I just look at everything and
That's
all I
true.
can think
Venezuela is like number 2 in oil reserves after Saudi Arabia, so more than Iraq, or
yeah, and we
Kuwait
would
or the
cause
Emirates.
so many fewer geopolitical problems. But not that it wouldn't still cause problems, but I mean, obviously, invading the Middle East just creates such more complex tensions than invading South
It's
America.
true, and there's a lot of very oil-rich countries that are quite weak in sub-Saharan Africa. Equatorial Guinea, it's like a tiny, tiny country. It's like a former Spanish colony, so it was like what was left over after all the big European powers, right? But it's very, very rich in oil. It would be very easy to take. I mean, I think it has I don't, I'm looking at the population, but I'm sure it's less than 1 million people total. And it's got a lot of oil.
I didn't know that. I had heard
Yeah.
vaguely that.
Gabon has a lot of oil, and it's next to it. So Equatorial Guinea has 1.268 million people. Not very many,
Not at all.
but it has a shit ton of oil. Let's see what it does.
Yeah, there's just no explanation for the Middle East stuff outside of the Israel lobby and Israeli geopolitical interests, as far as I can tell. But I think I'm preaching to the choir.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's see how much oil. They struck oil in 1995.
So they've just been
And,
chomping at the bit.
Yeah, and most of the population lives in poverty still because the government steals all the oil, but there's a lot in there. So I mean, if we're about just about oil, there's these weak African countries that have shitloads of oil that would be very easy to conquer.
Alright, so it sounds like there's a resource issue going on as well. Okay. It's standard.
Well, I mean, the way I hear it
Great,
praised by some is that it's not that we need the oil, it's that China needs the oil, and so we want to make sure that they are kind of contained. But I don't think anybody in the U.S. has really thought that far. It's one of these things that once you get into the conspiracy theories, like think, well, what makes sense? And the thing is, people don't make sense. The rational actor fallacy is the biggest fallacy going.
I definitely agree with that. Alright.
I don't know what happened, but I suspect it will probably end up the U.S. kind of just having withdrawing most of its troops out of Iraq and just reimposing a lot of sanctions and using proxy forces to kind of fight indirect war against the Iranians in Iraq. So, U.S. Supported militias against the Iranian supported militias. So a lot of U.S. support to the Kurds and a lot of U.S. support to Sunni Arabs.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine the U.S. Getting into a direct war in Iran. I mean, people have not forgotten about 2003, you know? There's already protests. Not that we have any actual power to affect it, but I mean...
I think it's going to be one of these, you know, during the Cold War there were all these proxy wars. You know, the Soviets would arm one side and the U.S. would arm the other side. I think Iraq is just going to be like that, but the Iranians supporting the Shiites and the U.S. supporting the Sunnis, both Arab and Kurdish.
My God, what a shit show. Oh no. Alright, well, apparently this wasn't Heinrich's cup of tea. That sucks. Sorry, buddy. Maybe we'll have...
Heinrich's hilarious when he
yeah, I'd like him
is in his element.
I'd like to chit-chat with him, but apparently we'll do it another day.
Maybe he's having technical problems.
That's possible too. But it's happened to me once or twice now that I think about it. Alright.
But I don't think the U.S. is going to reinstate the draft or use strategic nuclear bombing raids over Tehran.
I mean, it's got to affect things in some way that, like, what's the statistic over the past few decades? American testosterone levels have dropped by like 30%. I can't imagine, yeah.
Testosterone is dropping?
Yeah, by 30% over the past few decades.
I don't believe I've lost 30%.
I don't believe I have. I think it's mostly concentrated in like urban areas.
Yeah.
But you spent 6 years in Africa.
I did.
It's got to make you pretty masculine. and malaria resistant.
Yeah, I was turning black from the inside out there with a higher testosterone level.
I don't know. I've heard that it has to do with birth control, getting like metabolites getting back into the water supply in urban areas.
Wow.
I'm sure some of it's just behavioral, like lifestyle related.
That might be true because I think in Ghana the primary form of birth control is condoms. But I don't know. I'm not a woman, so I wouldn't know about the pill. But they did push condoms, so I think that because that one you had a double effect. Also prevented the spread of HIV in particular.
Yeah,
everybody
definitely needs condoms.
Yeah. So they really pushed condoms. Like if you went to like a gas station or a liquor store or like a small grocery store, they'd always have them on the counter, or of course a pharmacy.
It needs to be some kind of international policy where for every pound of food sent to sub-Saharan Africa, we have to send like 5 pounds of condoms or something.
I think Durex has already been doing that in Ghana.
That sounds so
It would have
gross.
like they had like I lived in Great Britain, so I was familiar with Durex, but they had like the different types of condoms that I had not seen in England and Ghana.
What do you mean?
I mean, like the feathers and the ribs and the
Feathers?
and the
Oh
thick
my
and
God.
How's
thin
a feathered condom?
and the colors, the flavors.
Oh man.
You have like 12 different choices,
Well, you know, in sub-Saharan Africa, I mean, they're going to be really torn between whether or not to use the condom or to eat it.
No, there's plenty of food in Ghana. If anything, they went from having malnutrition problems, particularly protein deficiencies, to now the big problem is obesity causing type 2 diabetes because there's too many Kentucky Fried Chickens.
Isn't most of the famished parts of Africa more like Eastern sub-Saharan?
They're all in the east: Sudan, Ethiopia,
Ethiopia.
Somalia. They're in the eastern deserts of the Horn of
Things are
Africa, where
things are
there's
pretty lush over there in all those little countries in the west.
yeah. Well, the reason that it's in the east is because they use food as a weapon. So you have constant warfare. One group will try and starve out the other group.
Oh, that sucks. Ethiopia is an old country.
Yeah, yes. It is
the
so
old
old that they don't actually know when it was founded.
Yeah, I mean it's in the Old Testament. It's old.
So like every other country in Africa has like a date of independence. So the can't remember. Libya is fairly early on. I think it's like 46. And then the earliest for Black Africa is Ghana, and it's 57. And like Ethiopia is like the beginning of time or something.
What if Ethiopians are the real Jews? No, probably not.
There was that argument made, not only Ethiopians, but there's a group even in Ghana that claimed to be a lost tribe of one of the 12 lost tribes.
Nice.
Yeah. But they like practice this they practice like a cargo cult version of Judaism. Would be like if you had no written records of it, and you just kind of like had Seinfeld to watch or something. How you would practice it? Imagine if all you knew about Judaism was like watching Seinfeld or the Luke Ford show, and then you decided you were going to practice put your own shul together.
Wow.
It's kind of like that. I don't think it's considered very orthodox.
I think
They sing the hymn of the Costanza. Costanza.
believe it or not, George isn't at home. Please leave a message after the beep. I must be out or I'd pick up the phone. Where could I be?
Something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that show.
Yeah. 9 out of 10 would not lampshade.
But they think that the Ark of the Covenant is actually in a monastery in Ethiopia.
I think I've seen pictures of that building. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the
they have
guards,
armed
they
monks.
all...
They have monks with AK-47s.
But don't they all go blind or some shit? Like the guys that go into the inner chambers or whatever? That's what I heard. Like
If you're a Nazi.
some little legend. Like David Icke was
I don't
talking
know. The
about
guys
this.
that had the AKs were on the outside.
If you're a Nazi in a George Lucas movie.
Now, how are you going to be a Nazi in Ethiopia? Everybody black. And besides, it was the Italian fascists who were there, not the Germans.
Not in Indiana Jones.
They weren't in Ethiopia. They were in that little part of Turkey that comes down into Syria.
Oh, like
Hatay, it used to be called before it was taken over by the Turks. It used to be kind of
Hatay, is that
contested.
related? Is that related to like Hattusa?
I have no idea. It was contested between the French and the Turks, and the Turks won out. But that, I think, is where that was they were supposed to be. So they were in the Levant. but in the northern part of what it's historically been Syria and is now this little enclave of the Turkish Republic.
Oh, is it like near the coast or like Antioch?
It's on the coast, yeah. It's on the coast, northern Syria, like that little part of Turkey that comes down into Syria, like takes a gouge out of the coast there. Let's see. Hatay province is what it's called. Hatay is a southern
I
Turkish
see,
province
okay.
on the Mediterranean coast, bordered by Syria to the south and east.
Yeah, just to the. I was gonna say left, just to the west of Aleppo.
Yes, yes. So that is where that used to be like separate, right after the Ottomans fell apart. It was a while before it was joined to Turkey. So so it becomes So it was independent from 1938, the Republic from 1938 to 1939. After it got independence from the French, I think, and then it became part of Turkey. I think so.
It'll always be Antioch in my mind.
So it's like the largest group there are Alawis, the 28%, and then Sunnis are only 10%.
What was the first one you said?
The Alawites.
Sounds familiar.
That's the ruling group in Syria. Assad, the Assad family are Alawite.
Oh, okay.
And so in 1939, the Turks took it over. But in the Sanjak of Alexandretta was an independent state for 1 year under joint French and Turkish military supervision. So that would have been the time that you had the Indiana Jones. So 1938 to 1939. So after the Anschluss, but before the attack on Poland.
I always enjoyed those movies better than Star Wars. I don't think that's a terribly popular opinion, though.
Wait, which movies?
Indiana Jones?
Oh, yeah. I could see that. I really liked The Last Crusade.
That's where they go after the what is it called? The chalice from the Last Supper.
Oh, the Holy Grail?
The Holy Grail, yeah.
Yeah.
I love the scene where Hitler signs his father's diary, thinking it's like a copy of.
I love it.
Sean Connery is, hard to beat. There's a guy with no estrogen, all testosterone, man.
Yeah, watching Sean Connery play like a dopey old man, like a coward, that was so funny. I love it.
Yeah, that role was pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not even so much that he was a coward, he was just so...
Well, yeah, you're right. He wasn't a coward.
He was kind of soft and just sort of bookish.
Yeah, he just wasn't into it, basically. Like, he found the violence distasteful. I think that's the best way of thinking about it. Because he wasn't afraid. Yeah, you're right. Being cowardly.
Yeah, it was just such a brutish affair.
Yeah. Like, he found it all just to be...
That is kind of
terrible.
British, though.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I said brutish.
No, but it's a British attitude. To find the people on the continent, you're just too brutish.
Yeah.
The problem with the Germans is they just haven't learned civilization yet.
Yeah, like all the violence was beneath him, and he just didn't want to get his hands dirty, and anyone that tried to force him to soil his hands is just like, get away from me,
people like
bro.
Himmler running around on the Eastern Front dealing with these slavische Untermenschen.
I think you stepped a little bit outside of the British attitude there.
Sometimes it's hard to keep You know, I'm part English and part German by descent, but the German part seems to always win out. Although most of my family was not actually in Germany for quite some time. They were in Poland for a very long time, like from the 18th century to the beginning of the 20th century. They were in various parts of what became Poland after the Napoleonic Wars, the creation of Congress Poland as part of the Russian Empire. Then I guess in Ukraine, but that part of Ukraine became part of Poland after World War One.
So I should finally be going to that monastery tomorrow.
Oh, you're gonna see the Ark of the Covenant?
Yeah, that one. No, St. Herman of Alaska Monastery. I was supposed to go there last week, but one of my childhood best friends came into town for a couple of days, so I postponed. But the monks come into town where I live every week.
So the monastery is in Alaska?
No, there was a famous Russian monk named St. Herman, and they named this monastery after him. I believe.
Yeah, it wouldn't be pronounced Herman though. It would be pronounced German.
German.
Because there's no soft H in Russian. There's a G, like a G sound, and then there's a it's usually rendered as a KH, but it's basically from the throat. So like Harasho. Right. So, but yeah, but you would for Herman, it's always a G. It's a soft G rather than they don't have the H. The H is a Ukrainian sound.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that.
So German, German.
I'm assuming he was ethnically Russian because he was Russian Orthodox.
Yeah, and it was the Russians who came down to California, places like Fort Ross.
But this monastery was founded by a guy named Seraphim Rose, who was not Russian, but they did name
Seraphim
him.
sounds Arabic.
Seraphim, I think it's just like means angel or something. It's.
I know a lot of Egyptian
Angels.
Copts who were named Seraphim.
Well, yeah, it's Semitic, definitely. But it's
no,
actually.
I don't know if the Copts are Semitic. The Copts were there before the Arabs came.
Well, but I think the word seraphim is in the Bible.
Oh yeah, maybe Aramaic.
I think it refers to angels, like seraphim and cherubim and stuff.
Right.
But it's
ethnically, I think the Copts are not Semitic. They were there before the Arabs.
Oh, okay. So what language do they speak?
They have their own language, but most of them now have been totally Arabized linguistically.
Yeah. I knew they had their own writing system. I've seen that.
Yeah, but they had their own language too, and then of course they got so overwhelmed by the Arabic-speaking population. The largest Christian denomination in Egypt, Sudan, and Libya. Historically, they spoke the Coptic language, a direct descendant of Demotic Egyptian. So they speak ancient Egyptian, basically.
Cool.
It says here 15 to 20 million still in Egypt. That sounds high, but...
Yeah, I read that too. Apparently there's a pretty decent amount in Russia. Or at least the members of the church.
There's a bunch in Ethiopia. That's the main church in there.
But yeah, that monastery is actually like world famous. Most Orthodox Christians I talk to, they all know of it. And I guess it's because it became famous during the Soviet era because Rose's writings were translated and disseminated in Russia, in Soviet Russia. He's very well known among Orthodox Christians. Yeah, I met the monks 3 years ago, and I finally followed through. So should be interesting. It's gonna be cold, but it'll be all right. Might be there for a few days. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's like you're not really supposed to talk,
Well,
and you get 2 meals a day.
no, yesterday was Orthodox Christmas, January 7th.
Yeah, I was tuning into some of those live streams. The Greek patriarch Theophilus II was in Bethlehem giving the Christmas service, presumably to.
I think a lot of the Christians in Bethlehem though are Catholic, but they may be Greek Catholic rather than um, Roman Catholic.
Well, technically, they all consider themselves Catholic because that was in the Nicene Creed.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about whether they have the Eastern liturgy or
They're one of the. Because, yeah, aren't there like Eastern
they may
branches?
be Unionate, which would mean they recognize the ecclesiastical authority of the Pope, but have Eastern Orthodox liturgy. But let me see.
Have you been following any of the schismatic stuff going on with?
No, no, I'm a Protestant. We've done our schismatic. The 30-year war was our schism.
Yeah, the Patriarch of Constantinople, Bartholomew. He's acting very popey, and other Orthodox Christians don't like it because technically he's only supposed to be first among equals, and that's really only at the councils.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he's like making statements about like people being ungrateful to their mother church. It's kind of like that's not what you are.
Okay. I can't find what the division by denomination for Bethlehem is. All it told me is that it's a historically Christian city.
Yeah, I don't know how many Eastern Orthodox Christians there are in Israel and Palestine.
It used to be a lot in Palestine, but
Because
a lot have emigrated.
there's Eastern Orthodox, but then there's like Oriental Orthodox, which is different. Eastern Orthodox, Roman Catholics, and Protestants all recognize the Fourth Ecumenical Council. But I think that the Oriental Orthodox don't.
The Oriental Orthodox Nestorian.
Yeah, maybe.
The Nestorians are the Assyrians.
Yeah.
The Assyrians are usually, I mean, there's a bunch in Iraq and there's some in Syria, but I don't think there's
There's
that
definitely
many
a
in Palestine. I
connection
think
there.
Palestine has Greek Orthodox and Greek Catholic.
So the Greek Catholic Church is just like a particular church within the Roman Catholic Church, right?
No,
like
these were people who had split off as independent Orthodox, and then the Catholic Church went around to them. So the Unionate Church in Ukraine. There's one in Romania. There's a bunch in Lebanon. The Maronites and the Melkites are both Unionate. And what it was they said you can keep your Eastern liturgy, but just owe your allegiance to the Pope. So they become basically politically Catholic, and they're like the Chaldeans in Iraq, but liturgically Orthodox. Does that make sense?
Yeah. They basically recognize.
Yeah, they came back. The Catholic Church got them to. They said they cut a deal, so you can keep your liturgy if you just say you recognize the Pope.
But so you said came back.
Here it is. It says Greek Orthodox and Roman Catholic.
Yeah, because there's Greek Orthodox.
Right. The Christians in Bethlehem are mostly Greek Orthodox. It says. Um,
Okay, so that's why Theophilus was there. So that's still Eastern Orthodoxy though.
yes, but specifically Greek. Yeah. So they would recognize the patriarch in Istanbul.
Make Istanbul Constantinople again.
Very unlikely.
I know.
Although I hear Richard Spencer is going to try single-handed crusade.
I would love to see it happen again one day. It's freaking Europe, and not that I think it's something that we should focus any energy on. We got bigger problems. But it still just doesn't set well with me, the idea that that's just forevermore going to be Turkey.
Well, I mean, what used to be the Ottoman Empire becomes less and less Christian as most of them just decide, you know what? Middle East sucks. I'm gonna leave. Fuck it. I'm gonna go to Detroit or Chicago. Well, that's what happened with all the Christians in Iraq.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate that what's become of the situation for a lot of Eastern Christians.
So I don't, but it's like this has been a huge decline to immigration. I mean, if you look at the percentages, the Christian population in the Arabic-speaking countries, it's been just a massive wave of them upping and leaving.
I was surprised to find out today that it's like 16% of Bahrain is Christian.
Yeah. How many of those are migrant workers? Maybe they're all Filipinos.
I don't know. I know there's it was just according to Wikipedia, but it was I think it was 50% were Arabs, and those are pretty much all Muslims. And then a large percentage are.
Yeah, I'm guessing the
Persian.
Christians are all Filipino.
You think so? Do they bring in Filipino people just like?
Yeah,
People
lots of
from Nepal.
Filipinos. I mean, just like our nurses here in California are all Filipino. Same thing in the Middle East. So when I went to get my artery replaced, the nurses were all Filipinas.
I know they bring in a lot of people from Nepal too. Or I know Qatar.
Yeah,
does.
but they're not Christians. They're Hindus.
No. I want to look it up again. I didn't see it mention anything. Well, it's funny because in the census, I hate the word Asian with regard to just census data. So stupid. It's as if there's anything in common between a Persian and a Korean. It's just,
Except, in the census, Persians are not considered Asian.
well, at least on the Wikipedia page for Bahrain, they are.
Yeah, but if the U.S. Census, it's very strange. People from Spain are not considered European. They're considered to be Hispanic. But people from Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, who are obviously Asian, are considered white by the U.S. Census Bureau.
Well, our Census Bureau is dumb. And I don't like it.
Well, Moroccans are white, but Spaniards are not. I never understood that, but that's what it is.
Oh boy. It's probably going to be the last time I'm able to hop on here this late. Starting school next week, and I'll be getting up early.
Oh no, bummer.
Oh, dude, just stay up all night.
Yeah,
I do have to sleep because I want to go to that monastery tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Actually,
Which they probably won't call me until late morning.
Yeah, okay. Actually, now that I think about it, this is as good a time as any to wrap stream. Because actually I'm wicked tired right now. So, I'm sorry, guys.
Alright, well, I'm gonna hop off.
Yeah.
Alright.
All right,
Good talking
Goose.
to you guys.
Yeah, cheers, buddy.
Alright.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed
Gonna wrap it up?
the monastery. Yeah. Hey, Jonathan, Paul, what's going down, buddy?
It's going alright.
So I've been spreading the word of the Spartacus revolt. Do you have any fun factoids that I should
To become a
really-
Spartacist?
Well, I'm just talking about it. I want people to know about it.
When did you become a Luxembourgist?
Well, I'm not one.
Oh, I thought maybe one of these red diaper babies had converted you.
No. But I know about it, and I like talking about it with people. I want people to understand the role of communism in the modern world.
Aren't all your neighbors communists?
Not all of them. Some of them are socialists.
They're just calling themselves socialists because it sounds better than communist.
Yeah. It's actually the case. But really, seriously.
Yeah, I the revolt was crushed because Friedrich Ebert and Noske cut a deal with the Freikorps to smash the communists so they could keep the majority Social Democrats in power in Weimar Germany.
So it wasn't even a real defeat. It was actually just sort of a handshake.
No, it was basically it was the moderate socialists who had an elected majority in the Reichstag. Their leader, President Ebert, and then the more right-wing Noske, who was in the government, bringing these paramilitary forces back from the Eastern Front to cooperate to crush the communist insurgency, which probably would have been successful otherwise. But you see, you didn't get to roll back to the Imperial Germany. So with the Weimar government, the Social Democrats were still in power. It would be it would be kind of like if Tulsi Gabbard became president and then cut a deal with Adam Waffe to crush the Antifa.
Well, it's not too bad sounding, I guess, but who cares about Antifa? It's the people that control them that are the big deal.
Well, it was the emergency to prevent them from taking power immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I get it, yeah. Oh my gosh. Alright, well anyway. Yeah, I'm kind of wandering in and out of consciousness.
Alright, I'll see you later.
Yeah, well, thanks for popping on, and I still want to do West Coast Wednesday tomorrow.
Okay.
So, yeah, so pop by.
Alright.
Okay. Alright.
Ciao.
See ya. Alright, that was Goose and Jonathan Pohl and me being half awake the entire time, and I should have apologized for that actually, because I've legit been half awake, half asleep. Anyhow, Tom Anderson is asking if I'm going to play an album. I might. I legit might play an album. Actually, no, I will. I will play an album. But what am I gonna play? Play. Downloads, yes. main folder. I know I got an album in here somewhere. I'm just gonna play haircuts. I freaking love haircuts. It's easy. I don't have to think about it. I'm gonna play haircuts. Boom. Done. It's easy. Alright guys, I am going to let out. I hope everyone has a fantastic evening. And yeah, I guess that really about does it. I don't have anything on the slate. So there you go. I did no case streaming. I'm gonna leave the 4 rules for now because I'm just tired. So I'm going directly over to the music. Everybody remember to read Romans 2:24 and say your prayers and floss. And say your prayers and floss.